Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining today's webinar on the topic growing your business through digital transformation. We will be recording the webinar for internal compliance. Please enter your questions in the question box window that is seen in the webinar panel. Broadly, we would discuss in terms of the current trend, what's happening today, in terms of digital transformation, the growth imperative, and the new normal. Keys to successful digital transformation, emerging technology trends, applications and use cases, Epicore and digital transformation will be also discussed in today's discussion. I would like to introduce our key speakers today. Paul Flannery, Vice President, International Sales, Epicore. Mr. Paul Flannery, Vice President of International Business of Epicore, brings with him more than 3 decades of experience across various direct and indirect sales and leadership roles within the information technology sector, including roles at Oracle Corporation and Sun Microsystems. Throughout his career, Flannery gained extensive experience enterprise solutions and has been highly successful in developing channel and sales program across the EMEA region, North America, and Asia Pacific region. That's about Paul. And the second speaker of today is Mr. Suresh Chandrasekharan, who is the Chief Solutions Architect of Reinbrucker. Suresh comes with more than 2 decades of IT experience in solution architecture, pre-sales, and consulting, and has successfully implemented ERP solutions across the world. As a Chief Solutions Architect, Suresh comes with immense technical know-how and provides technology leadership and strategy in the domain of enterprise IT across different industries. Myself, I am Srikanth Ramakrishnan. I would be the moderator for today's discussion. I come with more than 2 decades of industry experience, predominantly from a delivery standpoint, and I've been building center of excellences in the past for different ERPs and technologies, based on which currently we are doing a channel management program, and we have incubated more than 6 partners into our partner ecosystem, and we would be empowering our esteemed customers through this valued partner network, and we will empower both our channel network and our customers through this value-added channel management program. We would discuss today the topic on digital transformation, growing your business. As explained, we would take this in a Q&A mode, and we would take you through various paradigm shifts in terms of what's happening today. We are all navigating through a phase that most of us have never been through before. COVID-19 has had dramatic impact on business across the globe, and it has turned out to be the greatest digital transformation accelerant of the century. According to a recent survey, over 2,500 enterprise decision makers, 97% of them believe COVID-19 accelerated their company's digital transformation efforts to adapt new ways of working, customer needs, and so on. From a panel standpoint, I would like to begin with the question in terms of what's happening today, and also what are the major differences you see these days on priorities of organizations for digital adoption. Paul, would you please share your views?
Yeah, thanks, Sri, and good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all warm and well in Dubai, because it's very cold and wet here in Scotland. But great question. I think there are really, from my perspective or from our perspective, there's really 3 fundamental changes that COVID has kind of brought about or accelerated. The first one is the customer experience, their behavior and their needs, given that most countries and companies have gone into lockdown. I think the second one is unpredictable demand, and what does that look like? And the third one is the agility or the flexibility and having the platform and the IT infrastructure and applications to be able to react to these changing needs and demands. You know, what we've seen is a huge spike in people working remotely. And what that's done, and to the analyst comment you made, we've got the same from, you know, very well known financial Wall Street analyst firm that have said, you know, digital transformation will be accelerated probably 2x in the next 2 years as a consequence of what we've experienced with COVID. Um, and if you just look at, people can't get access to information because they're not in the office. They can't go down onto the shop floor, so they've got to reconfigure it because they can't get people on it. You're going to see a huge drive towards automation in terms of workflow, in terms of business process, in terms of the paperless office, because you're not in it, you can't access the filing system. You know, you've got to have it all online. And how do you connect the top floor to the shop floor to actually drive the factory robotically because of technologies like IoT and RPA and what have you? So, you know, I think all of these technologies were available. I think we're going to see, and we are seeing, an acceleration of that as a consequence of COVID and the kind of environment that we're all now living in.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much for the insight. Suresh, how would you view this current stuff from your viewpoint?
Okay, thanks, Sri and Paul, and good afternoon to all of you. Right? See, if you look at digital transformation, that's no longer a buzzword, right? People really know the importance of digital transformation, and experts categorically states that once the organization is digitally transformed, their revenue growth is going to be around 16%, right? And when it comes to the overall profit, right, that is going to be increased by 26%. And their market capitalization is going to, and visibility is going to go up, is what people are going to talk about, what the experts are talking about, right? If you look at the region as a specific, the region has been under pressure for quite some time, right? For the last 1 year because of the downfalling oil price, because it was a majority of oil economy. But post-pandemic, things are getting worse, actually. And if you look at the organizations, almost around 94% of the organizations in Middle East are SMEs, actually. Now, SMEs have a bigger challenge in terms of keeping their bottom line, as well as how do we resolve the cash flow issues. So the things got worse, actually, when it comes to the overall the business. But thanks to the rulers of Middle East, especially the UAE rulers, they took the initiative and they started driving the digital transformation as an initiative for quite some time. So the adoption of cloud and other digital transformation technology was very high in Middle East especially. So moving forward, it is easy for them to accept, adopt, and move forward quickly. Compared to any other places where they have to have the foundation. If you look at majority of the Middle East companies, due to the initiative from the rulers, there is a lot of foundation setting is being done. As Paul rightly said, how do we automate shop floor to top floor, right? How do we keep the productivity and efficiency kind of on the higher side? So it is very key when it comes to the digital transformation. How do we achieve it? And as rightly you said, Sri, actually, most of the respondents or IT decision makers are keeping this as one of the highest point in their priority list, right? In the one of the top items in the priority list, especially to get automation and to achieve the digital transformation. And during the COVID situation, things got, people started realizing earlier, they didn't know what would be the impact of not achieving digital transformation, right? But when people started working in an isolated world, and they're not having access to data, they don't have access to the traditional file system, so people were struggling, they were getting panicked. So that is when people started realizing how important the digital transformation is and how it is going to help them in terms of achieving their overall goal and objectives and keeping the business running, right? That is very key. And we heard a lot of jokes, actually. This year is more of survival, not for making money, right? Or the question is basically, how do we survive? If you want to survive it, you have to have the data ready, and the cost cannot cut any further. The only way what you can do is basically improve the efficiency and productivity. So I would say digital transformation become much more relevant in the current context, and organizations started realizing that they don't have any issue in terms of investing in it, and they are taking it in a, I would say that actually one of the top priority items is what my view for your questions, Sri.
Thank you, Suresh. Thank you, Paul, for the wonderful insight. That was a very good opening point. That would take me to the next further point, which is kind of, what are the major differences you see these days on priorities on organizations for digital adoption? Paul, I would like you to touch this particular point because you started off talking about it. So can you please take this?
Yeah, sure, Sri. I think to amplify Suresh's point, I think digital transformation has been a bit of a buzzword, but I think now people are saying, actually, if I don't have a digital strategy, the potential to die and the risk to the business is significant. And if I go back to my kind of years of history in this industry, one of the key kind of goals for IT was, how do you get access to information, applications, and decision making anytime, any place, anywhere, on any device, always on? We've gone global. A lot of us are working 24/7, right? If we look at what COVID has driven us to do and we call it work from home, I kind of think it might be living at work, but that's a kind of interesting discussion for us as a panel and for the people listening. But what it said is, if we want to do our job, we've got to have access to, we've got to have that anytime, any place, anywhere, on any device, always on kind of availability. So I think what we're going to see is, and from our own growth index that Epicore does with our customers, 49% of them are saying we're going to spend more money next year on IT to drive our business forward. And the kind of critical question, and I think our customers that are on the call should be asking themselves is, do they see IT as a cost, an unnecessary evil, or do they see it as an enabler? And given where we are, I think it's got to be an enabler, culturally got to be an enabler. And then you want to look at, what is my IT, what have I got IT today? And do I have the foundation stone in place, the ERP platform, the financial, the operating model that enables me to have a good foundation stone to build out from? And then you want to look at the things that, the analysts, both IDC and the financial analysts, are saying are the key areas. How do I get to cloud? Because I want to achieve that anytime, any place, anywhere, on any device, always on. I want to achieve that. And the cost to do that internally, it can be prohibitive because it's 24/7. The second one is, e-commerce, according to the analysts, is going to accelerate in the next year. It's going to grow more in the next year than it was allegedly going to grow pre-COVID in the next 2 years to come. So an acceleration of e-commerce. So what is your e-commerce strategy that you build on top of your ERP or your foundation platform? Data analytics and understanding what your customers are doing, how they're doing it, understanding their persona, the buyers, their digital footprint. You need to assess and analyze all that data. And then we're also seeing it's moving much more quickly towards a cashless society. So digital payments and security around all of that. These are 3 or 4 of the key areas that I think, if I was a customer, I'd be looking at. And then you'd also be considering, when I want to go and implement that strategy, do I want to do it on premise or do I do it in cloud? You've got to think about what is the CapEx versus OpEx discussion, and how do I leverage my balance sheet and leverage the money that I've got. And more importantly, once I've got there, how do I get access to innovation quickly and effectively? Because we talk about Industry 4.0, it's happening in months and years, whereas the Industrial Revolution 3, 2, 1 took hundreds of years, 50 years, 40 years to happen. The time to value, the time to adoption is happening so fast now. One of the things I would say to the customers on the call is make sure the foundation stone you pick enables you to have the choice and the ability to take advantage of those innovations going forward to de-risk your future strategy as a business. So, Sri, I hope that was an answer that makes sense to you and to Suresh and to the customer base.
Absolutely, that's correct, Paul. Thank you so much. So, Suresh, what is your thought process around the topic, Suresh? How would you see the?
Thanks, Sri. I think Paul has given an overview about the perspective, or I would say the change perspective, especially in terms of e-commerce, the supply chain, so on and so forth, right? I would rather look at this from an overall change perspective of people today, right? Earlier, we were all talking about growth and innovation, right? That was a two key word in every presentation, every experts when they talk about actually the industry in the future. But if you look at today, things have been changed slightly, and people are talking about efficiency and improvement and productivity, right? That is what people are talking about mainly. And when you look at things from that perspective, how do we improve productivity? How do we bring efficiency in the organization? So that is where the IoTs, artificial intelligence, right? Which the manufacturers have significantly more control over the quality of their product and the on-time deliveries and stuff like that. And Paul was talking about the current situation, especially organization has have safety control, social distancing. Then that is when actually the autonomous system and other things can help in the factories, right? There's no social distancing rule for autonomous systems, right? You don't have to keep the 2-meter distance. So that is where the advantage and organizations can take benefits of the overall, the digital transformation things, right? And especially the smart factories. People are setting up smart factories today. And earlier, we used to work people with people. Now, these days, people and systems started working together, right? One task can be performed by the people, second task can be performed by a system. And especially for repetitive tasks, you can use the systems like RPAs and let's say that actually the IoTs. So that will help in terms of you to bring efficiency and productivity. So people are talking about automating. How do we automate shop floor to top floor, right? And you need to have a clear foundation. The foundation could be a cloud system. So that could be a cloud ERP. Then based on that foundation, you start looking at the priorities, especially the IoTs, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and how do we bring in RPAs and let's say that actually the autonomous system. That is where the focus is going to be, especially from the shop floor point of view. Paul has given an overview in terms of how e-commerce is going to get transformed, as well as other areas as well, right? Overall, the focus is going to be efficiency and productivity, and whatever it helps, people are going to adopt that and move forward. And needless to, without any doubt, we can say that that is the digital transformation is what is going to help them in terms of achieving their overall goal and objective.
Thank you, sir. This is an excellent insight. That takes to the next point. In these times when the organizations are economically challenged and there are demand fluctuations resulting in limited spending power and budgets, basically, how relevant is digital transformation? Say, for example, how Industry 4.0 or machine learning or IoT, etc., or the cutting edge technologies, so to speak, matter now to the business. What approach should organizations take? Paul, if you can throw some light on this particular point, that will be of great help.
Yeah, I think we're seeing digital transformation change industries, right? You know, if you looked at historically, you would go down to, Blockbuster Video on a Friday night and pick up, your takeaway and pick up your video to come back in the house and entertain. Now the children are doing it on an app and the food's getting delivered to the house and you just download Netflix, right? So the whole kind of experience of what digital enables in our kind of personal life, we've got to look at how do we achieve that in a business life, right? Because, Blockbuster's out of business and Netflix is worth, hundreds of billions of dollars in terms of market cap. So you've got to look and say, what can we learn from some of those industries that have transformed themselves, and what have they done really well, right? They've turned products into services. Look at what Apple's done. You know, the big product company, but a huge amount of their, you know, their downloads, their apps, their marketplace, their music is a service and a recurring revenue stream. So they've turned products into services. I think those are the types of things that, you know, having a strong digital transformation strategy and having IT as an enabler help companies to do, to drive revenue and lower cost and increase earnings. And I think one of the fundamental kind of building blocks of that is cloud. And I talk about it as 3 E's. I talk about cloud as an enabler, I talk about it as an equalizer, and I talk about it as an economizer. And what does that mean? You know, what does each of those mean? You know, it's an enabler because it gives you access to innovation at a price point you could never have afforded before. Think about financial services as an example. 10 or 15 years ago, to be a bank, you would have had to invest $50 million plus to buy a mainframe to have the platform to deliver your accounts and your balance and your transactions. Today, you've got fintech companies popping up, leveraging web technology, cloud technology, and platforms, and challenger banks coming in with offers and customer experience apps that are way differentiated from the legacy banks. You know, I have a personal experience of, you know, my son changed banks. I've been with the same bank for 35 years. He's changed banks because the app was not a nice customer experience. You know, I find that unthinkable, but if we look at 50 to 60% of our workforce in the next 2 to 3 years is going to be millennials, their expectation of digital tools and assets and apps is very different from an older person like me, right, in this industry. So if you look at, you know, enabling those types of things to happen, you need cloud to do it. The equalizer piece is everybody's got access to it. Right? You know, you don't need 50 million to buy an IBM mainframe. You can go and spend $1,000 a month and get access to a platform and an app that allow you to enter a marketplace, right? You don't need to build tens of millions of dollars of capex to get access to IoT application and services that allow you to turn your product into a service, monitor it. Just think of the car industry. 5 years ago, you'd never have thought you would get an over-the-air upgrade to your car. It's just incredible, right? But that's changing the products and services that our customers manufacture and who they deliver it to, and the experience that their customer then has. So that equalizer in terms of access to innovation, I think, really matters. And then the third one is economic, right? Number one, you don't have to own it, you just use it. And the second one is you compare the price point of where you can get to, then the potential to disrupt markets by being bold and having thought leadership. You know, there's a phrase that you don't need to outrun the lion, you just need to outrun the guy next to you. Well, that's the same in business. How do I disrupt my competitor? By taking advantage of technology and innovation at a price point. So I think those 3 things about cloud, of the economizer, the equalizer, because you don't have to be big to compete, and the innovator or the enabler. I think those are the things that if I was in the customer's shoes, I'd be having a hard look at about my strategy and taking the leap forward into cloud to drive my business forward as part of my digital transformation approach.
Well, it's a nice way of looking at it. Suresh, from your perspective, how do you see the influence of cutting-edge technology? Like Industry 4.0, IoT, etc. What do you think?
Hey, Sri, what we need to look at is basically, first of all, the cloud. People used to go for cloud from a scalability perspective, right? There was a bit of a resistance, or rather, I would say that actually people are a bit reluctant to go with cloud initially because they thought, hey, generally it is one solution which is being presented to everybody, right? And that was so I have to compromise when it comes to some of the processes, complaints, and some of the requirements specific to me, what I have actually, right? Because I'm going to adopt a general system or generic system. That has been changed. Now, if you look at it, people have realized one size doesn't fit all, right? So what we need to do is we have, especially from Epicore and Rainroot together, we have developed, we had a vertical strategy and developed vertical focused systems, actually, right? And that in turn help organizations to adopt the application without compromising on their compliance and standard and processes, right? When I say vertical, each industry has got their own specific requirement, right? And those requirements has been pre-configured within the system based on our best practice, let's say best processes, best practice solutions and processes. And it's easy for people to get implemented, actually. It is not that the traditional 1 or 2 years of implementation life cycle, me going and understanding what the customer need and coming back and configuring or designing it and giving them back, right? It is more about standard processes based on the best practices is configured, and all the requirement which they need for their business to automate is already there in the system. So the return on investment is much quicker. People start seeing the results much quicker rather than the traditional 1 year to see a screen to open up, right? So that is not the case today. So people, it's easy for us to implement. It's much quicker, and it is easy for much quickly the people get the results as well. The total cost of ownership is much low, as well as the return on investment is much quicker. And that is one is the product, right? Actually, there is product, there is services as well. So how do we implement and deliver this to the customer? So the methodology has got a big role to play. That is where Rainbrook, along with Epicore, come out with a methodology, which is, let's say that actually a rapid, fast track, and the traditional implementation methodology, where we can easily help people to realize the value of the solution, right? That's the important thing. And once they have that ERP foundation, which is on cloud, it is easy for them to conceptualize and implement rest of the digital transformation initiatives, actually, especially IoT, smart factories, and so on and so forth. That is where the biggest difference and advantage what you get to see in today's world, actually, especially what Epicore and Rainbrook is offering to the market.
That takes me to the next important aspect, like what is the role of a cloud in digital transformation today? What cloud opportunities should companies be considering now to accelerate their digital transformation? In the current scenario, how does a cloud ERP solution help in higher efficiencies? Paul, would you please throw some real experience into this, because we've been talking about it for a long time, so we would like to hear it straight from you.
Yeah, let me try and address that one. That's a pretty big question and pretty broad. So let me try and break it down. I think the first thing is each customer will be at a different part of their journey, right? So adopting the right digital transformation strategy, people will look at it from a different standpoint. I think, as I said earlier, the first thing you want to consider is what is the solid foundation stone I've got that gives me the data and understanding of what my business is doing. And then the next piece is, how do I take advantage of those 3 E's, the enabler, the economizer, and equalizer, to disrupt my marketplace, disrupt the competition, and grow the business whilst increasing my profit, which is not easy to do. So the first, the way I would be looking at it is to say, what are the trends out there? What are the analysts saying? What are the industry analysts in terms of IT, like IDC and Gartner? What are the financial analysts saying about where the trends are, whether it be Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, or whatever? And what are the vendors saying in terms of their feedback from the communities that we serve? And if you put all of that together, 89% of CIOs that they've all surveyed are going to accelerate their adoption of cloud, which is way up from 54% 3 months ago, right? Which was just after COVID started, right? So people are seeing cloud as a way to get access to that digital strategy and disruptive strategy at a price point that makes sense given the constraints that we've got today, right? Firstly, you want to survive, and then you want to thrive, right? We all want to get through this. And then building on that, like I said, on e-commerce or whatever, data, those are the building blocks to get to the digital strategy. But in terms of, why would you go to cloud? I think if we look back in history, a lot of customers have built their own, process discipline, behavior, and then customize the software so that it looks like 20% of what it started with and 80% is their customization. And what you end up with at the end is, you know, a solution that is exactly fitted to your processes and where you want to run. And then when you come to upgrade it or add it on or take advantage of new technology, it doesn't integrate. The cost of regression testing is high. You can't take advantage of the new infrastructure platforms to run it on because the software that you've developed doesn't run on that anymore, the operating system. All of that problem goes away when you go to cloud. And there's a trade-off, right? What you want to get to is about 80% of it is best practice from the vendor that fits the industry deeply and knows the industry that you're in, and their software meets that requirement 80% out of the box or even more. And all you want to do is not configure the last, customize the 20%. You want to configure it to the look and feel of how you want to do it or the way you want to do the workflow. Because what you want to do is lower the total cost of ownership, right? And we know from studies by Gartner and IDC that 80% or 40% of the total cost of ownership of IT is in the people to build, operate, and manage it. And 40% is in the processes you've got to go through to make sure it all hangs together today and in the future. You go to cloud and a lot of that 80% goes away. I think a lot of people get confused by comparing the cost of an on-prem license to a SaaS model or a cloud application. They're two completely different things, because the cost of IT on-prem, you've got people, process, build, operate, manage, infrastructure, network, servers, backup. Before we even get into things like security or RPO or RTO in terms of data and business continuity, these are all built into the cloud solution offering. And I think as an industry, maybe we've not done such a good job of explaining to customers that the SaaS offering is not comparable to just an on-premise license application, but it's actually about the entire stack, right? So when I look at it, then, you know, I think getting to cloud is about how do I simplify my processes? How do I standardize what I do? And I give myself a platform that de-risks my future, right? That I can continuously upgrade and take advantage of. And I've got choice in that platform of all of the other innovations and values that I can get from the cloud that help me disrupt my competition. You know, so I'm coming at it less from a technology standpoint, really, and more from a process and behavior and cultural standpoint, right? Because that's the way you get the best advantage of the cloud. It's simply a tool, right? It's not a nirvana, right? It's just a tool to be able to use and leverage to get your business to run more effectively, to be more disruptive, and to win bigger in the market.
I think you gave a very good perspective of both the tangible and intangible benefits of cloud. Many people do not realize the business continuity portion of it, or probably the ease of backup restoration or ease of the upgrade, so do we speak. These are all seamless and it's not really visible for the end customer. So I think that's an excellent insight in terms of the strategy point on moving to cloud. Suresh, what would be your take on this particular aspect, Suresh?
Hey, just to add what Paul said, right? There's a huge shift in the thought process of people, especially leaders, right? Do good in what you are, right? You are good in actually doing your business, right? If you are in a manufacturing sector, you are good in that actually. Don't try to do everything, right? Especially from an IT point of view, maintain your systems, manage it, and put all these things together actually. Yeah, let others do that particular job because they are good in it, right? That's a huge shift in the thought process of people today. But if you also look at it actually from a strategic point of view, right? Earlier, probably digital transformation was one of the items in the wish list of most of the leaders and organizations. But now it become one of the important item in the overall organizational strategy, without which you cannot survive. That is a reality, right? It is not something you are doing it for the sake of doing it, rather without which you cannot survive and move forward. That is the reality, right? Now, looking at that, you need to achieve automation. First of all, you have the cloud, you have the foundation. Now we keep extending that actually to achieve the next business goals. So you have to always align your strategy with your business goals, right? If you want to achieve automation, and how do you achieve automation, right? There is a simple automation like RPAs, robotic process automation, to manage the repetitive tasks, to a larger things like actually complete robotics, and they do the process in the shop floor, right? And most of the activity. And the supervisors are sitting and managing and monitoring those robotics rather than sitting and managing people, right? So that is the shift in terms of automation. At the same time, people have to realize moving things from physical to virtual, right? Now, we know that actually earlier the file cabinets used to be there in the offices. People used to take the file and review it and keep it back and all of the kind of things. But these days, content management system, which is an integral part of the overall your cloud strategy and the product strategy, and it is part of it, and you will be able to leverage, and people have to realize that actually moving from physical to virtual, and they have to accept it, and they will see a huge benefit advantage in it actually. And also, people have to use this crisis situation or leverage from this to accelerate their overall cloud efforts actually. Identifying a right platform, that is one of the key things, because there are many things available in the market, but you have to look at the future and what is which foundation, which product is going to protect your future, and have the ability to bring in that automation to achieve your overall digital transformation strategy. And also what Paul has mentioned earlier, the relevance and importance of data intelligence, as well as, I would say, big data analytics, right? I have during this COVID situation, and that is where people, especially in the supply chain area, very effectively use the big data analytics, right? Especially to go and search, especially one specific country has got a problem in supplying certain commodities, go and search and identify where do we get that, and all of the details actually, so easily you can go and slice and dice data and get the necessary information, which will help you to improve your decision making power or speed, and that is what it helps us, right? So overall, I would say the change in the thought process is basically driving this kind of initiative, and people have realized that without the digital transformation, I cannot survive in the current economic situation, right?
That's right. Thank you very much. So most likely the end of pandemic, or probably so to speak, has created so many impact. For example, an economy impact probably is one aspect of it. And while we are at a recovery period, say, what could be the focus areas in this recovery period? What are the technology trends? How can these technologies accelerate economic recovery and protect the organizations in the future? We have seen some examples like probably a clear use case on how to go for the cloud or IoT or AI or analytics. What kind of overall strategy bag would you recommend, Suresh? Would you be able to elucidate on that point?
Definitely, Sri. There is no one answer to that, right? Because we know that the current situation is unprecedented, right? None of us have experienced a similar situation in the past. Even if you ask the previous generation, they will also say that actually, hey, it's something unique. It is unprecedented, right? So how do we overcome this crisis? Definitely, as I said, the answer is improving productivity and efficiency, and using technology to help us to run the business, right? Let us say that if you look at from a e-commerce point of view, today, how many of us go into the supermarkets and hypermarkets and going and buying things? Rather, we sit in front of the laptop or mobile phone and ordering it, and that is getting delivered, right? Look at the restaurant business, right? Look at the movie business, actually. It is completely, how many of us are going and watching a movie, rather Netflix, Amazon Prime? Things are changing like that, right? The same way, everything is changing when it comes to the overall people are using technology to do their business, right? So it is important for achieving their digital transformation. So how do we achieve that is the question, right? Is it something which we can have a plug and play? Definitely not. you have to look at the organizational culture, right? Are they ready for this kind of digital transformation? If they are not ready for the digital transformation, we have to align our strategy to the business goals and start it small, right? It doesn't have to do everything together. What is going to give us the best return on investment? That is where we have to start. Probably it is e-commerce. If you are in a distribution trading company, probably that is what is going to help you. If you are a manufacturing company, probably I would say IoT or autonomous systems or RPA is going to help you, right? And organizations where I know a classic case where an organization, they are receiving close to around 2,000 plus invoices in a month, they put an RPA, and that is what they have automated the whole process rather than sitting and keying in each and every invoice. They are using this RPA as a tool, and they do that process automatically, right? So all these cases, there are technology available. What we need to do is basically we need to look at where are we when it comes to that curve. Are we ready to do that automation? If you are not ready to do the automation, look at actually what's the best way to start it, and that could be bringing a foundation ready. Then slowly improve on that actually. If you have the foundation ready, look at the next area and keep investing in it, and bring and get the benefit of the digital transformation. And technology is what the solution for to come out from this crisis, I would say, immediately.
Thank you, Suresh. Paul, how would you take this from your standpoint? What could be done on the recovery period strategically? How would you please throw some light here?
I think, without danger of repeating what Suresh has said, I think analysing what infrastructure and IT you've got today and benchmarking what worked well and what didn't is probably a good starting point. So rather than kind of getting into what products solve your problem, I think, if I was sitting in the customer's shoes right now, I'd be looking at, what worked well, what did I do well, and what did I not do? And therefore, how do I need to, take steps, from an IT perspective and an investment perspective to do that? I'll give you an example. The business, the industry that my wife works in, they were immediately told just to go home on a Thursday afternoon. They had no work from home strategy, no firewalls, no security, no remote login capability, servers that weren't big enough to deal with that. And all of a sudden, IT department over a period of 5 days that their staff were not able to work or operate from home, had to go and invest money to do that, right? So different people will be, different companies will be at a different place. So I would say the first thing is analyze where you were, what you did well, what you didn't. And then look at, what is my strategy for any time, any place, anywhere, on any device, always on? And what elements of that am I good at and am I not good at? And what elements of that, do I need to invest in to make sure I drive cost and complexity out of my business, but at the same time I disrupt the market and I can have a better customer experience that helps grow revenue, right? And I think in that is absolutely the areas that Suresh has mentioned. What can I automate? What can I simplify? What can I standardize? How do I leverage the data and the analytics I've got? We're in a region here that's predominantly oil, right? Data is the new oil. How you refine it, analyze it, look at it will enable you to deliver new products and new services and innovative things to the marketplace. So getting that data piece is really important. And then, of course, if you're going into manufacturing and the shop floor, you're going to look at the shop floor management, the scheduling, and the expensive machines and robotic devices you've got down there that are building the products that you sell. How can I optimize them to get more out of the capital investment I made in that shop floor, right? But each person, you want to take a look at all of those in terms of a jigsaw puzzle and pick out the ones you're good at, the ones you're not, and which ones give you the best ROI for your business, right? That's, if I was sitting in a customer's shoes right now, that's the process that I would be going through.
Then probably I would take a next step or a what do you call a logical extension to the thought process. What would be an ideal digital transformation roadmap? What would be the best approach? Where to start? What are the keys to a successful and seamless digital transformation? Suresh, can you please offer some practical advice to our audience?
Sure. See, kind of first of all, as I said earlier, are we ready for it, right? That due diligence is what is the first thing what is required, right? Once that is been done, identify the right platform, right? Identify the right platform and tool. That is the next step actually, right? Without that platform, without that platform, you will never be able to extend that to the next level, right? And that platform has to have the capability and flexibility in terms of achieving our overall goal. And then the next step is basically having a strategy in place in terms of what is the low-hanging fruits where we can get the return on investment much quicker, right? That is what I do. And these days, when you're identifying a tool, it is not that actually that tool alone. You also need to look at actually the capability of people who deliver that actually to make it more appropriate to their business, not by customization, as Paul said. It is more about actually the tools. If that flexibility is there, and if it is built on that best practices, and they have the tools and artifacts ready, then it is easy for people to get, and I would say that actually to reach that overall objective what they have or goals they set actually.
Perfect, Suresh. Thank you very much, Paul. What would you suggest in terms of the roadmap? How do you take it like a step-by-step approach, or from a practical aspect of it? Currently, there could be data, as you said rightly. Data is the new oil. How do they begin? So for example, yes, there is a business application that's running, but how do I go to the next step in the current situation? That could be a question.
I think it would also, echoing the point that Suresh made. I think it's also where is the customer on the journey. If you were starting with a clean sheet of paper, I agree with Suresh's point. Get the foundation stone right. What is going to be my base ERP, financial, manufacturing, supply chain, solution? That's kind of critical. And how do I want that to evolve over time in terms of an IT as an enabler versus a cost? And trade off. Do you have a big IT department? It might make sense that you do it in-house. If I don't, how do I leverage what's in the cloud and take advantage of all the features and benefits of what we talked about in terms of business continuity, security, etc., that I don't have to worry about? So, but getting that base capability in place is a simplified and standardized approach, and then make sure that you've got choice, a stable, ecosystem of applications that will allow you to do the things you want to do. You want to make sure that the vendor that you choose as that baseline platform, it's a solid platform and you've got significant access to innovation. What you don't want to do is be stuck on an island in a legacy, right? And you can't take advantage of things, or the cost to do it is extremely prohibitive. And I would absolutely mandate, if I was a customer, that whatever I pick as that foundation stone is open and extendable in terms of making my choice of how I want to, take applications forward that meet the needs of my e-commerce strategy or my automation strategy or my shop floor strategy. So these are the things that I would be looking at. But again, as I said maybe earlier in the earlier question, I would also be looking to benchmark where am I today, what worked well, what didn't, and make sure that I could build a more solid foundation stone that allowed me to achieve my business objectives with IT as an enabler. That's the way, I'm not going into a product pitch here because I don't think that's appropriate, but I do think getting the processes and the building blocks in place and the approach and the strategy from an IT standpoint are probably much more important, right, of what you want and what you're looking for, right? The products will probably fit most of what you want. It's what does it give you longer term, right? And what's the differentiation for you as a market in the market, and as a vendor giving you that access to that at a price point, at a commercial point, and is he meeting the 3 E's, the economizer, the equalizer, and the enabler? If they're doing that, you're selecting the right type of IT player to partner with.
Paul, thank you very much. Suresh, or Paul, I would probably let you continue, like from a product stack perspective. Can you quickly summarize in terms of how Epicore can help the customers? And probably Suresh, once Paul completes, you can say, as Reinbrücker, what can we do?
Yeah, good. It's a great question, and we're putting our R&D dollars into areas where, you know, we are deeper understanding and knowledge of the process and the capabilities that's required for the customers that we want to serve and the industries that we want to serve. We're ultimately driving towards 80% plus out of the box, so that you're not getting caught on an island, you know, a legacy island, and then you're configuring, you're not customizing, right? So we understand that, you know, what you're doing in fabricated metals, what you're doing in engineering parts, what you're doing in rubber and plastics and molding, you know, what you're doing in manufacturing, you know, discrete products and service, you know, whatever that is, you know, our products are much, much deeper, and we're investing our R&D dollars. And you can say, well, I can configure someone else's product to do some of those things, maybe, but what's the total cost of ownership? And back to this, you know, what does the world look like 2 years from now, and can I take advantage of innovation and technology? That baseline decision is an important one. That's where a lot of our dollars are going. And then if you build on top of that, you know, we talked about analytics being important. We're investing in that. You know, we're investing in e-commerce platform. You know, we've seen, you know, the amount of demos per week on ECC almost go exponentially, a product that we've got, because everybody wants to get online because nobody can get in the store. To Suresh's point, you know, everybody's doing it online. And then when you drive automation, then we're talking about two kind of key components of our strategy: our content management system, ECM Dockstar, which really drives the paperless environment, everything digital, access anytime, any place, anywhere, and our Epicore virtual assistant that takes AI and machine learning and starts to automate processes that would take manual intervention and drive both cost and time out of the process. You know, so the key areas that our customers are telling us they want us to solve for them, the industry analysts are telling us the market wants to solve. That's where we're putting our dollars, to be able to give all of the building blocks integratable with the core platform, so that you can continue to take advantage of future innovations that we bring to market. That's our overall strategy.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Paul. Suresh, would you like to add it with a regional approach, and what can Rheinbrugge as an organization can offer in this context?
Sure, Sri. If you look at actually what the customer is getting at the end of the day, right? It is not something tangible they are buying, right? What is the recipe for success? If you look at the recipe for success, one is definitely product, which Paul has already talked about, and there is no question about it. Actually, we know Epicore is built on a cutting-edge technology, and it has got all the features which is required for making an organization successful, right? The second thing is basically services. The third thing is basically processes or methodologies, right? When you look at the people, that is where Rheinbrugge, I would say that actually we have the right people, and the product is already verticalized for different industries. So the customer can quickly get the benefit of it. Actually, they can realize the value very quickly, right? Rather than going through the traditional way of implementing a product. Third thing is process. The process is basically the methodology. We have developed a scale methodology, and we offer 3 different models of implementation. One is rapid, fast track, and the traditional thing. The reason why we are able to do that is because of the verticalization we have already done. How come we have done the verticalization? Is because of the flexibility what is there in the product, right? So we leverage the product and the capability and flexibility, and we built a vertical focused approach, and the verticalization is done on Epicore on 5 different verticals. And we have also developed a methodology which makes us helps us to implement the product much quicker, so the customer doesn't have to go through the typical pain of implementing a system. It's almost like actually, you know, stick to the standard processes and go and get and implement it. It's as simple as it is very simple like that actually, right? That's exactly where Rheinbrugge can add value, and Rheinbrugge can help our customers.
Thank you, Suresh. I would quickly take a couple of minutes to speak about Rheinbrugge. Followed by that, our audience can type in their questions in the question panel that is seen in the webinar window. So, Rheinbrugge believes in changing status quo and grow by providing innovative solutions. How we do that is the next thought process. Like, we have a very strong mid-market model, strong EMEA network in terms of channel partners and consultants, and third thing, we source right. Rheinbrugge is a global company with strong presence in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. We are constantly focused on mid-market with a strong multicultural and multilingual team that understands your regional needs. We believe that business can achieve the desired performance when IT is aligned to business strategy and operational business needs. Delivering value to your business is the mandate of every CIO and IT organization. We create truly a value proposition through our cutting-edge solutions that leverage global cost models and best-in-class service by local experts. We provide the whole delivery mechanism through 4 different pillars. One is cloud ERP, the second one is product development, third is around IT, fourth is the consulting and advisory services that we offer. Reinbrugger is an Epicore Platinum partner and a 2 times winner of International Partner of the Year. We have immense experience and expertise in providing Epicore implementation and support services to our global customers for the past 7 years. We have executed projects in more than 30 countries and have 250 plus associates, serving 5 of the global Fortune 500 companies, and are proud to be serving our happy customers across these locations. Merlin, which is our flagship sourcing solution, it offers seamlessly integrated sourcing process automation along with supplier relationship management and planning functions, augmented by advanced analytics and artificial intelligence. It plays a pivotal role in enhancing collaboration between buyers and suppliers through an intuitive platform. The other products are Bruka, which is empowering collaboration between the employee community in the current situation. The last product that we offer is called Expensa, which is an expense management solution over the cloud. The third pillar that we are doing is connecting the enterprise together, which is called Surround IT, and we are a certified Microsoft Gold partner for application development, delivering solutions in the space of IoT, business intelligence, e-commerce portals, and mobile applications. The fourth pillar of our delivery is consulting and advisory services, where we provide large IT portfolio rationalization and supply chain management consulting with industry proven veterans in our team. I would take the questions currently. We have the first question. Thank you, Gauri, for this question. What is the future of Industry 4.0 in the post-COVID-19 world? Paul, would you like to take this question?
Can I say no? You know, I think it's a really interesting question because, you know, Suresh touched on it earlier. I think it's not a nice to have. It's got to be part of the DNA of your business going forward. So it's kind of moved from outside your bubble to it needs to be in your bubble, right? Because otherwise you're going to have a problem of how to interact with people. How do you manage your cost base? How do you manage your supply chain? You know, you can't get people back into offices or factories. You're going to have to automate. You're going to have to be online. I think it's now, you know, a potentially de facto standard that you've got to have it rather than a nice to have or maybe something I'll do once the big boys have done it before me. I think we've all got to get, you know, you just look at the industries that we talked about earlier, Blockbusters, fantastic business, bust, Netflix, just changed the game completely by being online, right? We've got to look at how do we help our manufacturers do that, and how do they innovate from products to services, because they can take advantage of IoT, predictable replacement, predictable supply chain, and taking cost and complexity out of your customer's customer business. These are all going to be really important. You can't do that manually. So I think, you know, I think it's got to be, my take on it is it's a necessary must-have, not a nice-to-have.
Thank you very much, Paul. Suresh, next is a very direct question. Thank you, Varshini, for asking this question. How can we migrate from our homegrown ERP system to a cutting-edge platform like Epicore ERP on cloud?
Hey, good question, Sri. Actually, and whoever asked that question is probably Varshini, right? See, your homegrown system to Epicore ERP. right? See, what the main reason why we are offering a cloud system, and as I said, it is completely verticalized for industry, right? So what we do is we will be sticking to the standard processes because the industry best practices is already there, and what everybody is trying to achieve is basically the industry best practices. By moving into a cloud system, especially Epicore Cloud, you will be getting the benefit of moving and almost like moving into the best practice processes. If you go for a traditional system implementation, you will be looking at your process and validating your process against your best practices, and that exercise it's a huge exercise. Then you are talking about actually getting into a system. What by going into Epicore and the cloud, the one of the big thing what you're going to achieve is basically that process can be completely eliminated because you have an option to adopt the best practices, industry best practices, and you also have a proven methodology to help you in terms of moving into a homegrown system to a industry best cloud system. That is what the benefit what you're going to get by looking at Epicore.
Very good. Thank you, Suresh. I would take one last question for the day, and we can close the call after that. Paul, this question is to you. Durai, thank you for asking this question. What kind of change management is required for us to shift towards cloud? For example, when the version changes that happens frequently, how does it get managed seamlessly? How should we be looking at it and managing this?
Yeah, good question, actually. I think, if I go back to, what is different and how do you change if you're sitting with, an application on premise that's a 50, 40, 30% fit and 60, 70% customized, then you're going to have to look at how do I simplify and standardize my process. And you've got to make a trade-off between, do you want to have, the application customized to your business, or do you want to change your process to what is best practice in the cloud? Because ultimately, by going to cloud every 6 months from whatever vendor you go to, they're going to do the upgrade, they're going to do the DevOps piece of it, they're going to give you access to the latest features and functionality, which in a digital transformation world you want. I mean, you look at Netflix and Apple, they upgrade their platform every day. If you think about internal IT departments, they want to do it once a year, right? So the change cycle to take advantage of innovation, new apps, more security, whatever, is fundamentally different from an on-prem. So you've got to understand what that looks like, and you've got to agree and decide internally that you're going to adapt your processes to the best fit industry, rather than you're the guy that's got it as best you can. Unless you have got it absolutely great and your business is making a lot of money, then you don't really need it, right? But in the main, taking advantage of innovation is going to help you to disrupt the market and your competitors. So I think you want to look at that, how much of my applications customized today, what's my cycle of IT to drive innovation and value back to the business? Because moving to a cloud environment, every 6 months, you're going to get new innovations as part of the deal, right? You're going to get more value, more functionality, as part of the engagement with the cloud provider. So, and particularly with Epicore, and if I look at what we just announced in our product in 10.2.600 and what's coming in 10.2.700, if you're stuck on a legacy version because of complexity and your own, rules or fit, then you can't take advantage of some of these things. So that's one of the first kind of step changes in thinking of taking advantage of the innovation, right? But it's got to be a trade-off, right? You've got to trade off. Do you want that to be driven to you? We've got some mechanisms that would delay that if you need it, given the industry that you're in. Or do you want to be on-prem and in complete control of your destiny, in inverted commas, but you're caught on a legacy because you never can get to the latest version, right? Because the cost of doing it and the integration costs with the other products you picked are so prohibitive, you just don't, right? And then you get left behind. That's kind of taking it away and abstracting it from the technology itself. This is more about the process, the people, and the culture of the organization.
Great. Thank you very much, Paul. We exceeded like 3 minutes from the regular schedule call. I would like to thank all the viewers who have attended today. We would be posting this recorded link in our social channel, so please stay tuned and follow Ryan Bruca in your most liked social media platform. Thank you very much. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Suresh.
Thanks, pleasure. Thanks for listening. Really appreciated it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.